This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. This podcast is sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now let's start the show with your hosts, Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 205. Hey Viggs, how you doing? Nothing going on this week.
Nothing going on. Just your
absolutely. It's just a plain week. No reason. You know, we thought it was going to be a quiet week, so we're like, hey, quiet week. Let's bring on Jess Myers. It'll be perfect. We'll just relax and just kind of just have a nice show.
Jess always asks about the upcoming opponent, so if you're going to ask someone to talk about Alaska, Jess is your guy.
Well, let's bring our guest on this week from the Rink Live. There he is, Jess Myers. How you doing, Jess?
If we're going to talk about Alaska, I really feel like I should be speaking Latvian, and I don't know a lot of Latvian. Have you looked at their roster? It's
a little Euro focus.
We're going to get a nice preview of the Olympics this weekend. Thanks for having me on, guys. How are you?
Well, we haven't had you on in a couple years, and I know you keep pinning me down. When are you going to have me on again?
I need the money. Hey.
Yeah, this huge paying endeavor right here. Well, we're glad you joined us. Obviously, you know, I think the last time we had you on, you had just kind of started the Rink Live, just kind of getting back into it after a couple of years off.
Yep.
And now you guys have, you keep expanding, keep doing more things. You're doing a lot of video now. You're doing podcasts. What aren't you doing these days?
We've got a great team. I mean, I do really feel blessed. Randy Johnson, my friend who writes for the Star Tribune, covers the Gophers from time to time. We were out in Pittsburgh at the Frozen Four last year, and he's there trying to cover three teams. And we have, three reporters there, and we have Brad Schlossman up in Grand Forks. I mean, we have a really good team, and we've added, like you say, some video people. We just added Kirsten Krull to our group. She's covering junior hockey. We've got people covering youth hockey now. I mean, it's a lot of fun what we're doing, and the resources we've been given to do it. I mean, I really feel blessed with what Forum Communications has invested in time and money and in what we do, and I think it's paying off. I mean, I think we're providing some really good content.
I mean, in the past, you were kind of covering the local scene. You would be at Minnesota, you go to Duluth. You kind of covered locally. But now, you're on the road almost every week, almost every series. Maybe not all, but most of them, aren't you?
For 10 years, I covered the entire WCHA. So that was, 10 teams. That was a lot, getting out to places. But yeah, I'm pretty much full time on the Gophers now. I'm one of the rare folks. Frank and Wally and me are pretty much the only media that travels to most of the road games. I missed the Wisconsin series this year. That's the only road games I've missed so far. So
you had more important things going on that weekend. Was your boy getting married?
No, it was deer season. That was and I missed the home games against Mercyhurst because my son.
There you go. I knew you missed some games because of your boy getting married.
Yep. My oldest son is got a wife now. That's weird.
It's not weird. It's usually scary.
I mean, and super happy for them. He found a great girl in about 8th grade, by the way. So it's not like they rushed into this. They had dated for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Viggs, kind of joking about the news this week. Here, I'm thinking you've got this great prediction. I was a little on the edge about the prediction of Michigan State because, they had to prove it to me in kind of beginning of that third period, or second game. I was a little nervous, but they came through. So I'm like, we got great topics next week. And then everything hit the fan late Sunday afternoon when Mr. LaFontaine signed an NHL pro contract.
Yeah, I might have a little egg on my face still because as people were starting to bring that up, I was like, no. I think Jack's pretty committed to being a student. I mean, look, he just started this book club with Frank. Like, he is one of the most intellectual hockey players I've been around since being involved with college hockey. And you just kind of had this feeling, it's like, no way is he going to leave this. He talks about this, being unfinished business, how this is his new home. He talks glowingly of all his teammates and how Bob is his papa bear. And then you start seeing tweets that he's at Sally's having goodbye shots with the boys and tears. And, you hear that he's over at Mariucci crying, and you just go, all right, I guess this is real.
Kind of a shocker, Jess. Were you at the Vikings game trying to avoid the last game of the season, or did you stay home with your season tickets?
So my son and his wife were at the game.
Okay.
Let me tell you about my Sunday. Okay, first of all, Saturday night, East Lansing. I'm there.
Yeah.
Gophers get a rousing win. I write my story. I go out with my longtime friend Neil Kepke, who the only guy I know of who's covered college hockey longer than I have. We have a Long Island iced tea. We toast another great college hockey weekend. I slept in the next morning at my hotel. I have a later flight. My old friend Mike Idlebus from InsideCollegeHockey.com. We get together and have a nice brunch, go to the airport, enjoying a nice leisurely flight home. I'm somewhere over Wisconsin. And true story, in-flight messaging, I get a text from one of the Gopher parents that just says, Jess, what the hell? and at first I'm thinking I did something wrong, and then I start checking social media, and it's like, oh boy, we got to get this plane on the ground right now. Stuff's going bad. Yeah.
I must say, you had a tweet earlier today when you started, or maybe it was yesterday when you started talking about, you're in college to prepare that next part of your life.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't be too upset about it. People, obviously the team, this sucks for the team, but Jess, this is his senior year. He's already graduated. Obviously, his stats are kind of down this year. He's not doing as well. And then all of a sudden, he gets this opportunity that he may not have. I mean, if he finishes out the season, he could win a national title or whatever, but he's not going to have the stats and the everything that he had from last year. I really believe he made the right decision here. It's you get someone who puts this kind of prize out in front of you. You need to take it.
I don't question Jack's move at all. And Eric, it's funny you talk about him doing shots and him being at the rink with tears in his eyes. Jack LaFontaine is one of the more emotional guys I've ever seen. And I was at Yost last year when he got a shutout there in what at the time looked like it would have been his last game at Yost, where his career started. And man, he was an absolute puddle. I mean, just had to be consoled by teammates, and so I can see that being a tough decision for him, but absolutely made the right move for him. This is an unprecedented thing. We haven't, ironically, the last time we saw a college player like this sign in the middle of the season was also a Gopher. Kyle Oposo took off, mid-season 12, 13 years ago. So it's very rare, but I kind of wrote a column to this effect and said, let's look back at the last 22 months. What's normal about any of it? I mean, guys taking literally dozens of COVID tests every month last year, playing in front of cardboard cutouts, referees using special whistles so they don't expel as much air, the handshakes going away. I mean, this is just the latest bit of weirdness that we're dealing with. So yes, it's unprecedented, but everything about the last 22 months has been unprecedented.
What do you think, Viggs? We obviously have quite a few fans that are upset. I think they're more upset about just what's happening to the team, more than upset with the he's moving on to the pros. But what do you think?
I mean, I understand Jack's perspective. Getting a spot to play goalie in pro hockey can be extremely, extremely challenging and frustrating. I think there were a couple years back, I know Jess's team on his Instagram Live talked about this, when there was a run on goalies for spots in pro hockey. Duluth lost somebody way before they thought they were going to lose them. Strauss-Mann thought, I'm going to turn pro and I'll find a job. He had to go to the Swedish Hockey League to find a net to play goalie in. And now he might end up in the Olympics, which is kind of a cool deal for him. But I think from a goalie perspective, it's very, very different than all the other positions. If there's a spot and you're going to get probably a guaranteed NHL salary for the season and the maximum bonus, that's very tempting for a college kid to take. who might not have that opportunity at the end of the year. If Carolina goes out and makes another move to make sure they don't get caught short of goalie, Jack definitely doesn't have Carolina, and they're probably mad at him because he didn't sign with them. They wanted him in the summer. Now, on the flip side, the Bob side, I think the first 30 minutes Bob heard this news, he was really frustrated because college hockey isn't exactly like free agency. Yes, they can get Bartoskevich here this week, and he can be part of their roster, but he's not the same thing as a Jared Moe. He's not the same thing as going through the transfer portal and grabbing the guy from Cornell that's at Notre Dame, Galadeha. You can't get a guy like that mid-year. You can't just go to the wire. You can't trade for somebody. It's very different than the rules that NHL teams operate in, AHL, ECHL, heck, even the USHL. If Youngstown really wants to make a move, they don't have to grab this kid from South Kent Academy U18s. They could make a trade with another USHL team to get a goalie in. Bob doesn't have that choice. So it puts him in a really tough spot, and it puts his teammates in a tough spot. And I know all the guys on Instagram are posting, can't wish you any more happiness. You're a great kid. Go rock it in the NHL. Live your dream. But at the same point, there's probably some guys on the team that aren't posting on Instagram that are like, okay, great. Thanks, man. Well, maybe everything feels a little more empty to them. And that's how I think a lot of fans will feel. Is they pay money, and it's going to be disappointing not to see him in goal.
Can I throw out an elephant in the room that I don't think has been talked about enough in this situation? And one frustrating thing for me in defending Jack LaFontaine and his decision, which again I think was the right decision for him at this point. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand it. I think he made the right decision. A lot of people on social media, and I really hope it's the same people that have been harping all year that the Gophers need to make a change in goal, because there's been that crowd too. Okay, but a lot of folks have talked about, well, what about loyalty to your team? Where's his loyalty to the Gophers? And that's a nice concept. It really is. Okay, but let's think back to the end of Jack LaFontaine's sophomore year of college. He had played 22 games for the University of Michigan. He was 11-11. He had just gotten to a Frozen Four. Didn't get to play in that Frozen Four, but he got there with the Wolverines. And the coaches at his college came to him and said, "We don't have a spot for you anymore. Sorry, time to move on." Now,
loyalty goes both ways.
What do you learn about team loyalty if you're Jack LaFontaine? And that's not a comment on the way he was treated at the University of Minnesota at all. By all accounts, he was a great teammate. The guys loved him. He loved playing here. Never had any bad things to say about him, and he never had anything bad things to say about his teammates. But with that history in his mind, that's the way loyalty works at some levels, that people can just come to you after 2 years of school and say, "No, don't have a spot for you. Good luck." I think, he had to make this move for him at this point in his career.
And I think some of it, though, too, Viggs, is that we thought we had more of an heir apparent in Boynton, and, medical issues and just a lot of things. He's been number 3 all year.
And sometimes he's been a number 3 who hasn't even dressed for a game.
True.
So
I think there's a concern there. A fair amount. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a concern there about what his future is at Minnesota. He's got a couple weeks here to be the absolute best college student athlete he can be. If he wants to be here, I think this is a chance for him to make a really, really strong impression that he's going to do everything possible to be here. If he wants to go somewhere else and use the portal to go somewhere else, or, whatever, he'll have that option at the offseason as well. But it's been frosty, I think, every time his name has been brought up in the media room at Mariucci. Good job, Jess, keeping the frost and the temperature low on that.
Pat Royce asked the question this week, just for the record. He said,
come on. Pat shows up once every 5 years.
You guys didn't see it, and I don't know if this came out on the tape, but credit credit Bob Motzko. And he and I have a fun relationship. It seems frosty at times, but we're fine, all that. But credit him for a great line. He walks into the room, and there's all this media there. And first he makes the joke that, yep, the Vikings are done, because that's usually when the media shows up.
Yeah.
And then he says, it's great to have all of you guys here. It's been pretty lonely. And me being me, I said, gee, thanks, Bob. I've been here all year. He said, yeah, like I said, it's been pretty lonely.
It's been pretty lonely. Yeah, I wish
if you're checking out the rink live, you saw that part.
We did.
Yeah.
We did see that part. It was very entertaining, Jess, because I was watching
pouring a beer, by the way, just so you know.
Go for it. Viggs will have his later. Yeah. And, it has been kind of fun watching you and Bob go back and forth.
It's all good.
Especially when it comes to goalies. Last couple of years, you're like, gonna get Mo in? Gonna get Mo in? Are you gonna do this? Are you gonna do that? And I do have one clip that I've saved just for you, Jess. That's not from the last. It was a couple years ago, but this is one of my favorite clips that happened not too long ago for everyone to listen and see if you're watching.
I wish there was one less mistake tonight that we weren't talking about right now.
Can you give us anything on Walker? Injury, disciplinary, anything like that? Just curious.
You're crazy. I mean...
The best part is the little head shake toward the end when he's like, do you believe this guy?
He was looking at me, and there's me. I'm the little giggling in the background because you're right next to me. Just the look on his face. Walker out of duty, disciplinary. Are you crazy?
The context was, Sammy Walker's a freshman. He's on the way to winning Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He's a special forward, and you knew it even back then. Well, he's just mysteriously off the line chart. And I said if it's a fourth line left wing who never plays and he's not on the line chart, I'm not going to ask that question. But Sammy Walker's not there. I mean, that's a big deal. It turns out he had a concussion. It was just a one-day absence. But all Bob has to say at that point is he's a little nicked up. That's okay, cool. That's all.
But I think he likes just kind of getting at you.
Yeah,
especially when the cameras are on. I actually found that video from an old Periscope stream I had of it via Twitter. I was able to pick it up and save it. We'll get into a bunch of more stuff here about the whole goalie situation. And Mr. Justin Close is now your number one goalie at Minnesota. At least we think he is. But Viggs, we did have some games this past weekend, and Minnesota took the sweep just like you predicted. Pretty solid win Friday night, got out to the lead, held on to it. Saturday down 2-0, and it was just a blowout from there.
Yeah, and what I was really impressed with on Saturday is even though they fell behind, I didn't feel like they were chasing the game at any point. I thought they stuck to their game plan pretty well. We even saw Sammy Walker chipping some pucks behind the D and winning races to the end wall. He drew a penalty.
Something we've talked about a long time, Viggs.
Something we've been talking about. So it's nice to see that switch go, hey, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We're a very talented team that if we just keep the pressure on, things are going to add up. And I think Minnesota had 90 attempted shots on Saturday. That's just a huge output. I think Michigan State only had 40. So that's really what you're looking for. And eventually the talent and the pressure really paid off. And that was something I was happy to see. That first goal the Gophers gave away, that's basically LaFontaine misplaying the puck. And sometimes – the Gophers, when that happens, they just kind of fall apart. And it was nice to see them not do that on Saturday.
And another thing about that, Viggs, is that you're always it's going to be low scoring. So it was kind of out of character for Michigan State to play that way against Minnesota. I mean, the Avalanche came and they just couldn't stop it.
Yeah, and I think not having DeRidder in there, it's a little bit different goaltender to go up against, and Minnesota just kept putting on pressure, and they were getting second chances on Saturday. I didn't think they were getting as many second chances on Friday, so I think their speed paid off a little bit.
What do you think, Jess? You were there, and
last two,
like I said, it was slow in the beginning, but they just 60 shots.
Let me say this: the last two Saturday nights, first of all at Yost, and then at Munn. Okay, They go into that game at Yost, and they had won 6-1 on Friday night, and okay, everything's good again. And I was saying to people, this is a really big game Saturday night because you can prove all those problems are behind us. They get the first goal at Yost. Blake McLaughlin gets a goal. It's 1-0 Gophers. Like, okay, they're figuring it out. They're on their way. And then it just went to heck. They give up the next 6. Justin Close plays the third period because it just – and so they go into the break with, we can't figure this out. We don't know what the problem is, all of that. So flash forward a month, they win a decisive win against Michigan State, which they should. They're a better team than Michigan State. I don't think that's a big secret. Saturday night comes around, LaFontaine misplays a puck, and it's 1-0 Michigan State. Gophers take a penalty, and 11 seconds into the power play, it's 2-0 Michigan State. And that was a case, too, where LaFontaine made a save. Rebound came right out, pop, it's into the net. And it's like, oh, boy, here we go again. Gophers get one back, so it's 2-1.
They weren't really playing that bad. They were putting on good pressure at the time. They were playing well, and their goalie was playing pretty well, too.
Pierce Charlson had frustrated them in that playoff game in South Bend last year. It was 1-0 Michigan State with about 4 minutes left, and you're thinking, man, Gophers, for all they did in the regular season, are going to be one and done in the tournament. They come back. Bryce Brodzinski ties it. Sampo Ranta wins it in overtime. Pierce Charlson, I think, had 50 saves in that game. So second period starts. You're down 2-1. They're out shooting them 17-2 or something like that. Michigan State gets a little break, and bang, it's 3-1. And it's like, wow, it's just not going to happen tonight. Then Gophers get 2 quick goals right at the end of the second. So it's 2-2 going into the third period, and then it was just all Gophers beyond that point. And we got to work on this, and maybe we can collaborate. We got to come up with the proper nickname for the Ben Myers, Matthew Nyes, Chaz Lucius line.
Now, the 9 lines doesn't work, what everyone was saying.
I kind of like the Niners. But that's just me. And I asked Ben Myers that question this week. He said, well, that's up to you guys. So I think between the 3 of us, we can figure this out. But that line was just unbelievable. The pressure they put on. I mean, that line alone had to have 30 shots in that game. It was crazy.
And Viggs, we're starting to see more from Broths, too. I mean, he hasn't, I like the way he's been playing. He hasn't been scoring yet, but I like a lot what he's doing on the ice.
I think he was making more plays.
Yeah.
I think he was a little more involved. I think a lot in the first half he would just kind of disappear into space. And sometimes that's not going to work when you're on a lower line. You're going to have to win puck battles. You're going to have to force opportunities to happen a little bit more. But I do think that the Gophers game on Saturday was a lot different than their game last year against Michigan State against Pierce. I think Minnesota last year, they were putting a lot of pucks right into the chest, right into the glove, missing the net. It's like some of those things that we have seen come out of Minnesota.
That Spartan logo is a nice target.
It really is. It's not supposed to be a bullseye, but last year it seemed like it. And this year, I think we saw more loose pucks, more rebounds, more pucks into the pads, and more opportunities. Like the Lucius power play goal. He's just coming in, finding a rebound that was shot real low and putting it up top. The goal that went off McLaughlin, he's squaring up to the shooter so that the goalie can't see the puck. We're seeing more what I think is percentage hockey and smart hockey.
Smart basics.
Rather than just Corsi hockey.
Yes.
Corsi hockey is when it's like, I want to have a 70 Corsi tonight. I want to just get pucks on net. I don't really care how dangerous they are. I'm supposed to look good. And I think we're seeing more real hockey.
That's how Kirk Cousins would play hockey? Is what you're saying?
Yes.
The stats
I got the shot on net.
This wouldn't work.
Yeah.
By the way, the best line I've ever heard about goalies who consistently make the saves when it hits them right in the middle of the chest, Guy Godowski, the coach at Penn State, once said, they say that goalie has a quick sternum.
Oh boy. So Viggs, you kind of captured the audio a little early of Motzko's radio show. I listened to it on Monday afternoon. I got one guy in COVID. Come to Tuesday media availability, we got 4 guys and a staff member with COVID. You and I are texting back and forth today. Is it gone to 6? Is it gone to 7? I mean, are they going to? Is this going to be one of those like tomorrow afternoon things where we're here? Oh, we got to cancel the weekend. I mean, Well, what do you kind of think here? You know, they went from 1 to 4 real quick.
There's this thing called exponential growth.
Yes.
And that's what it looks like when it goes from 1 to 4 to 10. I don't know if we're going to see that from what I know about Omicron and vaccinations and people getting infected, transmission rates. I don't think we'll see 10 players get it. But I do think Bob wanted to say, okay, where are we at? Because this is a very important stretch of games here before guys go to the Olympics. So let's take our temperature, find out how many guys have this, and try to lock it down now while we have some depth to our roster. Because when they get to February and they lose Myers, Nyes, Faber, maybe another one, the roster's getting smaller then.
Oh, yes.
So they got to figure out where they are now. And if it costs them a series, it costs them a series. I was at the rink today. Things looked pretty okay. Alaska looked like they were ready to go. So keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. But I don't think COVID's going away. It is
never now going away.
Yeah.
It's just I just had this one of these strange feelings, Jess, that it's going to be we could get those like Thursday afternoon. We're canceling the weekend. I hope not. I've just had this weird feeling about it all kind of day.
Alaska's been here all week. I mean, they're here.
Well, I'm talking Minnesota.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I certainly hope not, obviously. It was funny. A few times I've traveled on the team plane to and from series because they've got extra seats and they've been nice enough to say, hey, come on along. I mean, we pay for those seats. It's not like we're hitchhiking. I'm out there on the tarmac with a bag going, hey, East Lansing? Anybody going to East Lansing? No. But I didn't this past weekend, and somebody joked to me, maybe a good flight of you to skip that flight home, because it sounds like a lot of guys in close proximity, and all of a sudden Omicron is making its way through at least a few guys. But as a few of the players have said, we're young, we're in shape. No, this isn't going to knock anybody down for too long.
Exactly.
Folks who have had this variant have said, you're sick for a day, you're sick for 2 days. You get a little bit of a fever, you get some body aches, and then it goes away. So somebody who was out of practice with those symptoms on Tuesday might be ready to play on Friday.
Yeah. And then comes along today, Vigs. Minneapolis St. Paul put in a mandate that you need a vaccine or you need a proof of a negative test if you want to go to restaurants or any places that serves food indoors. It's going to affect the Timberwolves. It's going to affect the Wild. But, later today we kind of heard this is maybe not going to affect Minnesota, at least right now. They may change their minds, but right now it looks like they're just kind of keep going as they're going to keep going, right?
For some reason, the University of Minnesota gets to be kind of sovereign in how they apply these principles. So as that land-grant institution that they are with all that history, they can kind of follow whatever mandates they want to, according to President Gable. So we'll see what happens. I know that
they'll look at it. They'll definitely look at it.
They'll look at it. They have Mike Osterholm, public health expert, advising them on what to do. And, he's, as much as he's been saying everybody get vaccinated, everybody wear high quality masks, he's also kind of like, what's the science say in terms of benefit, in terms of changing this stuff? So is it really going to help to put one of these mandates out? He wrote an op-ed in the Star Tribune with another one of his colleagues where he basically said doing a mandate isn't going to reach the audience that you want to reach.
Yeah. Forcing
people to have vaccinations to attend things is not going to be a motivator for these people. It's almost going to be, poking them with a hot poker in the eye and saying, get vaccinated or you can't do all the fun stuff. That's not going to work.
And Jess, is there a coincidence here that they waited until after the Viking season was over that they announced this?
Maybe it was you that floated that conspiracy theory. I don't know. I mean, my son and his wife went to the game last weekend. She's a respiratory therapist, so she's been on the front lines of COVID since day one and has seen some real bad stuff. And I will say they wore masks on their own and did their best to distance from people. And, so at some point you have to live your life, even if it means putting a mask on, getting, showing proof of vaccination, all that. I will say this, and granted, I'm wearing a press pass, so I'm not just a Joe fan, but Michigan State made a big deal last week same deal. You have to wear masks at the game, have to show proof of vaccination, or you have to show a negative COVID test within 72 hours if you're not vaccinated and boosted. I got the message out to everybody. The parents all knew it. Everybody was there, knew that. Nobody asked me for it, but nobody once said, "Hey, can I see your vaccination card?" I wore a mask the whole time, obviously, and everybody in the building did. So it's one thing, putting these rules down. It's another thing actually enforcing them. Some of that might just be to say to people, if you're not boosted or vaccinated, maybe just don't come to the game. Maybe just watch this one on TV. Ben Holden does a nice job on Big Ten Network. Just listen to him. He'll be fine.
Well, we still got a ton more things to cover here. I want to get more into the goalie situation, bringing a kid in and Mr. Close. And obviously we got some games this weekend. But first, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey fellow GPLers, Jerry Peters here from First Class Mortgage. Have you refinanced your home in the last 12 months? If you haven't, chances are you should. Record low interest rates and skyrocketing home values make this the perfect time to remove monthly PMI while improving your interest rate at the same time. You can also use the equity in your home to finance those home improvement projects. Or you can consolidate high interest rate credit cards into one new low monthly payment. To hear more, call or text me today at 612-940-3291. You can email me at jerry@firstclasscorp.com, or you could go to firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. Mention the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. First Class Mortgage's NMLS number is 322842, mine is 480200. This is not an agreement to lock into an interest rate under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
And, of course, we always thank Jerry for sponsoring the GPL podcast. We didn't get a chance to get into it too much here, but obviously with Mr. LaFontaine moving on, it looks like it was a good thing that Motzko played Mr. Close in those two exhibition games, and he played him the entire game. Probably a good choice. His thoughts were different. Got to have some kind of guy who's had some time, a solid backup. Never did he even think he was going to be losing a tender to the pros. But what do we have here in Mr. Close?
I mean, he's been talking up the closer for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Even last year, despite Mo getting some time in the net, it seemed like Bob always was like, closer's an option. He's really a battler out there.
He didn't like Mo. That was kind of a weird thing.
And I think we might have the same thing going on with the current
Boynton,
presumed number 2. I know Boynton had a great year last year in the USHL. Made a lot of pride for himself, and it hasn't translated. And for whatever reason, not being ready to practice, being in shape, having some medical stuff pop up, getting sick, Bob has not liked that. And like I said earlier, it's been frosty when his name's been brought up. But closer, always a reliable guy. I think he's a battler, a guy who attacks pucks, aggressive goalie. He has to be. He's the 2-time Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League Goalie of the Year. So he had a lot of good experience there. But he's going to have to be active, I think, in goal to protect the net. He doesn't have the big size like some of the past goalies like LaFontaine, like Robson, or like Mo. So he's a different kind of goalie. So, this will be a good test for him to get a long stretch as teams get a look at him.
And it's probably a good thing that he's getting thrown in against Alaska. Not to disparage Alaska at all, Jess. But a week later, Michigan comes to town, and that's a little bit different. It's good to get thrown in real competition against somebody who's not, top 3 pairwise.
And I was thinking about just kind of the twists of fate that we've seen in the last few months. This Alaska series was supposed to be played the opening weekend of October. This was supposed to be the opener. And, like you kind of alluded to, Thursday morning, we got a press release. Oh, by the way, we're not going to play tomorrow. One of those kind of deals. So this was supposed to be a bye week. They were supposed to be play Michigan State and then be off for a weekend and then play Michigan. At first, I thought, well, that's kind of lousy that you have to have a series in there when you could rest up for a showdown with Michigan. But
it's pretty rare. They've always had some kind of week off. Now it's just straight all the way through.
It's actually worked out pretty well because think about Justin Close being put into this role where he's all of a sudden the starter. And he didn't talk officially to the media yesterday, but waiting outside to talk to another player. He came by and we kind of exchanged pleasantries. This is a guy that just seems absolutely even keeled at all times. Oh, the players say it. Always a smile on his face. Knows what he's there for. Knows his role. He has fun on the ice. Ben Myers said he's one of those guys. You don't skate through his crease in practice because you're going to get tripped or you're going to get hacked. I mean, he's just one of those guys. But that's having fun out there. So it's nice for him that he can get in and play a couple games this weekend against Alaska, and take nothing away from Alaska, but those are 2 games the Gophers fully intend to win. Get a couple games, some live ammo, as I like to call it, under his belt before he has to play against Michigan. And the Wolverines are still the Wolverines. And now keep in mind, Justin Close is the last Gopher goalie to play against Michigan because he got the third period in that Saturday night loss. So they'll be looking at him going, "Oh, you again?"
So, Viggs, how does this mess up the entire goalie situation? It wasn't looking great in the first place. It's looking like, oh, Boynton, what's going on there? Is this another Mo situation? He's not good with the coach. LaFontaine leaves. It's sounding like, Jess, you were talking earlier before we went on the air, like we're hoping they don't announce it, tonight that they're going to sign this Bartoskevich guy. But Viggs, this kind of does mess things up. I mean, in the whole recruiting line, or does it just kind of force him to say, hey, this is what we're going to do?
I don't think it's ideal. If you were building a college hockey pipeline of goaltending, you would not want to have Jared Moe leave at the point that he leaves, because he's of the age where he's having a pretty good season for Wisconsin. And then the next guy you bring in, Brendan Boynton, maybe is a bit of a miss in terms of what you were expecting him to add to your program. So maybe that's a miss. And now you're bringing in a goalie who struggled a little bit the first half of his USHL year. Maybe he's finding his game a bit right now, but you would like him to get the experience of having a second half with a team where he's playing well and gets into a playoff situation and gets that experience. Him coming to the Gophers now, I'm not expecting him to start games. I mean, I think this is the closer's second half. And maybe relief if a game gets out of hand or something, you're going to turn to somebody else.
Can I bring up something though? One thing that could throw this all off is you get close with COVID. All of a sudden, Bartoskevich is dressing, and just one injury away from playing, and then there goes a whole year of eligibility. In an ideal situation, we were talking before we went on the air. We'd like to. If this kid's going to come in, yes, he could dress, whatever, not play, and it'd be ideal to redshirt him. Isn't that kind of what you were thinking?
I mean, that would be nice if you can get away with it, so you protect the kid's eligibility. I mean, he's only 18 and a half. You would like him to be coming in as a 19-year-old at least, if not a 20-year-old. But that's not going to happen right now. So we'll see what happens.
Jess, I just want to know, how long will it be till you ask, when are we putting Boynton in?
Oh, come on. You really think I'm going to ask that question with the experience I've had? Wow.
It's getting so bad that, we have these people chatting here. They will chat, putting bets on when you're going to ask about the goalie situation. Because I use the same software. What's Jess going to do this time?
Nice.
I'm not.
No,
but the thing is, it's a little different now because there isn't that number one guy. I mean,
right.
Let's say a Friday night Michigan, maybe they win, but it's a 6-5 game, and it didn't look great. Or they lose, and there's a little more reason to kind of throw that at Bob, which I'm sure he'll give you just a smart ass response. But
we have ways to ask this question that's not so controversial. We'll workshop it a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, okay, number one, and I'm not saying you said this, Eric, but I'm not ready to give up on Brendan Boynton. Just because he's had a rocky.
We haven't seen him play.
Yeah, I have no idea if he's ever stopped a puck. I've watched him in practice. For people who don't know, okay, interesting story. I'm at the Frozen Four last year. I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm up in the press box. I have a son who goes to Iowa State, okay? So my son texts me. I think it was Thursday night or maybe Saturday night at the Frozen Four. I can't remember which. My son texts me and says, I'm in Des Moines. We went to the Buccaneers game with a bunch of bunch of his guys from his frat. Oh, cool, fun. He says, the Fargo goalie is heading to the Gophers. I said, oh, yeah, Brennan Boynton. Yeah, he's supposed to be a good goalie. Let me know how he looks. Literally 5 minutes later, my son texts me and says, your goalie just collapsed on the ice. Okay, so scary situation. But at the end of the first period of a game in Des Moines, Brennan Boynton was having some breathing issues and not getting enough air, and he collapsed, had to be helped by medical professionals. He went to the hospital that night. Turned out he was fine, but just one of those real scary moments. But that was kind of the first sign that there was some trouble. He wound up having kind of a minor surgery to correct some breathing issues because he was, not getting enough oxygen or something like that. So that kept him out part of the year. He hasn't been a full participant in a lot of practices, and that wears on coaches just for the simple fact that, let's face it, coaches generally don't like to think about goaltending. They want to put one guy in there. They want Jack LaFontaine to start 58 out of your last 60 games. They don't like being asked about it. I know this for a fact. But, that's just the way the coaches are with goalies generally. So, that's where we are with Brennan Boynton. I don't think this is necessarily a miss. I just think we don't know yet. It's an incomplete.
I just base a little my mindset based on how we saw Bob handle Jared Moe.
Yeah.
And the frosty relationship there. And maybe Moe was expecting a different college experience when he committed, and Bob said, you know what, I give everybody a chance. And Jared took that to heart and said, okay, you're going to give me a chance. And then he didn't feel like that was maintained. Mm-hmm. And so, it's tough when you have Jack LaFontaine playing the way he did last year.
Yep.
But if you want to keep your players, there's the PJ Fleck mindset of you're always recruiting your team. You are always recruiting your team, especially now in the transfer portal era when guys can just leave whenever they want. Maybe it's not the best decision for them. Maybe they don't have a landing spot, whatever, but you're always recruiting your team. And I think that's a new mindset for a lot of people in college athletics.
Mm-hmm. Mike Eves said that maybe 8 years ago when he was at Wisconsin. He said you recruit a kid to get him here, and then you recruit him to stay. And even more so now in the era of the transfer portal and all that. But it's funny talking about goalies because I think back maybe 15 years ago, I think it was Kellen Briggs was the goalie for the Gophers at that time. We get to about February 10th or so, and Kellen Briggs hits a wall and had a couple of uncharacteristic games in a row where, there were a few soft goals, and we haven't seen that before. So we start asking Don Lucia, are you going to make a change in goal? Are you thinking about maybe giving Kellen a rest? And Kellen was one of those guys like LaFontaine who was just like an every night goalie. You never had a question about who was going to start. It was always going to be Kellen Briggs. And I'll never forget this. Don Lucia says, no, Kellen's our guy. We're going to ride him. And he said, Michigan has had the same goalie for 16 years. Thinking of, Steve Shields, who comes in and plays every game for 4 years, and then he's replaced by Marty Turco, who comes in and plays every game for 4 years. That was the way Michigan did things. You found one goalie, you played him 4 years, and that was it. And I think every coach in their mind wants to do that.
Yes.
Well, and in college hockey, the biggest thing with goaltending is the mental stress of being a goalie. And I think that was one of LaFontaine's biggest strengths, is even if there's a bad goal, he's going to compose himself and be ready for the next shot. I think there's a lot of other goalies in hockey that we've seen where, okay, floodgates are open, start putting pucks on net. You're looking for a goalie that's got that mental capacity to have the mind of a goldfish and just forget it.
Anybody remember the 2000 national championship game? Adam Hauser gives up a bad goal at the start of the third period. And all of a sudden, anytime Maine was over the red line, they were putting it on net. I mean, teams smell blood in the water. Mm-hmm. And to Adam Hauser's credit, he had been great in the semis against Michigan, and he kept the Gophers in the game long enough for Matt Kowalska to tie it with the goalie pulled and Grant Patolny to win it on a power play. But that was just the prime example of, hey, this guy's struggling, get pucks in his face.
Because that go-ahead goal by Maine was brutal.
Yep. It was.
Well, okay, Viggs, another ugly thing came up this weekend, and I'm going to put it up here on the screen. Injuries. Nelson looks like he's going to be out maybe 5-6 weeks. Pitlick 2 to 3 weeks. And that's just not good considering we've got COVID issues, and then we've got players leaving in February. That's the one thing they've been fairly lucky about, at least serious injuries.
Well, up to this point, a lot of the players have been able to play through their injuries.
Yes.
Like Ben Myers was not obviously healthy in the first half. He's healthy now. Wow, what a difference. When he's feeling good, watch out, everybody. So this is just something they're going to have to deal with. It's unfortunate. It looks like Pitlick's had a couple issues now where he's gotten some upper body injuries. Time will tell if he can, get past that. But this is definitely a chance for guys in the bottom of the lineup to make an impression because they're going to need to be there and be part of the lineup in February as well. We're going to see guys like Fish and probably Schmidt here coming up get opportunities to play. And it'll be interesting to see if they can take advantage of it. I know Bob's looking at maybe adding a skater. Who knows what it's going to be? I don't think he'll be looking quite like he did with the goalie and just grab a guy out of junior. They might be looking for guys on campus. A place like Minnesota, there's a lot of former hockey players around on campus to pick from, and maybe that's good enough. It's a lot easier to pick a skater and insert him in, spot duty here. You can play a top 9 pretty hard in college hockey, especially with TV timeouts and whatnot. So I think that's probably a better solution there. Find a guy like Colin Schmidt who transferred into the business school for that and try to get him to get in shape by practicing. And
if it's a guy that's, not at the school already, Jess, he's got till the 17th, kind of with, Bartskevich. Time is ticking. They do need to get people on campus soon if they want to add anybody.
I kind of wondered if they'd bring in a defenseman. When you're looking at potentially losing Faber for 3 key series in February, your defensive core is not that deep to start with. He played Matt Denman in the exhibition games, but frankly didn't play him much. So I'm just wondering how much confidence they have in a guy like Denman to take a spot in the top 6 if things get thin. Yeah, you have Carl Fish, and Carl Fish has played great.
Yes.
I kind of joke that I think Sam Rossini is still in the transfer portal. Maybe call him up, get him back in here. But
hey, I believe Rossini still has his Twitter avatar is the University of Minnesota jersey. So,
yeah. Sam Rossini, by the way, trivia. Only Gopher ever to score a goal against Jack LaFontaine.
Oh, when he played for Michigan.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans who probably want to be big Rossini fans now.
Yeah, I did a whole story about it a year or two ago that, I went back and looked at LaFontaine's record. I think he played 2 career games against the Gophers, and the one goal he gave up was to Sam Rossini, and it was this shot from the blue line that had to hit about 3 Michigan skates and a shin pad and goes in. And Rossini joked, yeah, we replicate that all the time in practice. I just have to have guys lined up in the right order.
But it's going to be interesting, Viggs, Bob was saying, hey, these next kind of 3 weekends are huge. I mean, obviously non-conference, but it's kind of a see where close is at this weekend, should win, and then you go right back into Big Ten play against Michigan, and really right now, the top 4 teams are within a few points, so these games are so crucial to do as best as you can before you start losing those 3 guys, maybe 4 or whatever in February.
I think it'll be 3, by the way. I don't think it's going to be 4.
Yeah, I don't think. If it's they pick another D, I don't think it would be Johnson. He wasn't doing so great.
Well, I will say this: I talked to Ryan Johnson yesterday. He said he has not been invited to the Olympic team. So, and that could change tomorrow. Somebody could get COVID. Somebody could roll an ankle. Whatever, and I think they're pretty high on Ryan Johnson. I love his game just because
who's going to be the other goalie for the USA? Will they go after McKay?
Why would it not be Dryden McKay? I mean, seriously. I mean, is there a better American goalie of that age out there?
Not right now.
I don't think there is.
No. And they've already announced Strauss-Mann, right, Viggs?
Yep.
Just ask a Minnesota State fan who the best college hockey goalie is, and then they're going to tell you. It's a little easier now that Jack's in the NHL. But I will say that I think Minnesota has to look at this weekend, as we've often talked about, how a bad loss hurts you more than a good win.
Yes.
So I think this weekend is one of those critical weekends where you can't lose. You could tie and lose in overtime or something like that, but you cannot lose one of these games, because Minnesota has put themselves in that kind of pairwise situation where bad losses are really bad for them. And playing Alaska, they did okay against Maine and Denver here the last couple weekends.
Can I answer a question on the chat, by the way?
Go for it.
Someone named Eric Brever, I believe it is. Eric
Brever,
says, Jess, Warroad or Hermantown this year. If you want to go to Sam's Club, go to Hermantown because they have one. If you're looking for hockey, the answer is always Warroad. No, but all joking aside, you talk about a huge high school hockey game. Saturday, 5 p.m. in Hermantown. Warroad and Hermantown play each other, and man, that'll be a fun one. Two great programs and really good teams this year. So
I don't remember what it's like to have a high school program that's good.
and by the way, Warroad beat Roseau last week, 5-0. And the next day, I was at practice. Sadly, Aaron Hugen wasn't available, but I said to Brian Deutsch, my friend, I'm like, will you just make sure you tell Aaron I said hi? That's it.
Deutsch, you watching? We want to get
he's got his hands full. He's got a little child dealing with. He's got care closures and
Bartoskevich coming in.
How
about this for irony? What if the U.S. Olympic team? What if the U.S. Olympic team names their second goalie and they pick Owen Bartoskevich? I'm not saying it won't.
Yeah.
We don't know. No one's saying
we don't know.
Yet. No one's confirming or denying.
Jess, I kind of want to get your thoughts real quick.
Yes.
On Michigan being cowards and not playing Western Michigan. What were your thoughts on that? Because our friend Brad Schlossman, I've never seen him that kind of, I should say, vocal on Twitter and on his feelings about that. Viggs, both and I thought it was a bunch of BS. I mean, come on, you got to play. You got a full roster. What were your thoughts on that?
I'll preface it by saying this. I have always liked Michigan's coach. Good guy going back to his days as an assistant. He did great things at Michigan Tech. He's been a proven winner everywhere he goes. Always gotten along with Mel Pearson. He's one of us. He played at Edina. He's
Edina.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a great relationship with Mel Pearson. We had talked a little bit about him actually coming on the podcast that I host with Mick Hatton and kind of telling his side of the story. He initially said yes, and then I think he may have gotten some advice from the PR folks at Michigan, and then they said, you know what, it's time to move on. We don't want to rehash this. With that, all of that said, it doesn't look good. I mean, it just doesn't. As I said to some friends in East Lansing who have very strong opinions about the University of Michigan, as you might understand, I said, you can hold this up, 40 different ways, and there's no lighting where you can hold it up and go, oh yeah, now it makes sense. And I get the official word that the medical staff came to them and said, you can't play 2 games, you can only play 1. And with Mel Pearson's background, if you're going to pick one of the 2 games to play, you're going to play Michigan Tech, not only because it's a game that you should be able to win, but because he's a Michigan Tech guy. He coached there. He's got friends there. They've come from 8 hours away or whatever the drive is to Houghton, whereas, you can go to Kalamazoo in an hour and a half or whatever from Ann Arbor, all of that. Here's my solution. Mel, if you're listening, he's not, but that's okay. Or whoever makes the decisions at Michigan, call up Western, call up Pat Ferschweiler and say, hey, pick a Tuesday night. We'll come to your building. Let's play this game. I would think that would be the way to rectify it. That would be the gentlemanly thing to do.
Otherwise, the NCAA is going to do it for you in a regional. Wouldn't
that be great? I mean,
I think I came up with that almost immediately.
Oh, you did. I'm not trying to steal it from you, but that is just good.
Please put those 2 together in the first. I don't care if they're the 3 and 5 seed. Put them in together.
And with that said, too, I got to make just one more little soapbox pitch here. during the exhibition games, the U18 game and the St. Thomas game, I'm on social media and I'm following along, and all these people are saying, why would you play this game? Well, it's pointless. Somebody's going to get hurt. You've got nothing to gain. Why would you even play this game? The St. Thomas game, for example. And it's like, you know what? I like watching hockey. I like going to games. I like writing about games. This notion that you shouldn't actually play because something bad might happen. It's like, what do you go to practice for? You go because you're going to play a game at the end of the week. That's the whole point of this. So let's get away from this notion that, it's dangerous if we play, or, we don't have enough body. Just play, get out there and play.
And we're hoping we get to play this weekend.
Yes.
Vigs, Alaska's coming to town. They're already in town. They've been here all week, Vigs, but they play on Olympic ice too. So this is nothing different for them. We need Minnesota to keep their foot on the pedal. And like you said, you lose one of these games, that hurts you big time. So they have to be mindful of that.
Yep, and this isn't your typical Alaska team. If you were to, say, what's your stereotype Alaska team? A bunch of old kids, BCHL, Alberta junior hockey guys. There's a lot of Europeans on here. They've got good goaltending. They can skate. It's going to be a good test for Minnesota. You just hope that they don't turn the puck over and feed transition game for Alaska. So that's my big key. I'd like to see the power play look a little bit better. They had 7 chances on Saturday, and the one goal was a rebound that popped to Lucius that he put in. I'd like to see more of that kind of pressure, pass off pads, and winning second chances. You go back to that Michigan game where they lost on Saturday. No second chances, no rush opportunities, because Michigan really tightened everything up. So Minnesota's can't let teams do that to them. They're going to have to find ways to get in transition. They're going to have to find ways to get second chances.
And this is the big debut of Mr. Close, Jess. It's his chance to get in there. Well, exhibitions are one thing, but this is the real thing now.
He's played parts of 6 games over 3 years. But yeah, this will be the first time he's the guy that they call before the national anthem. I mean, I'm excited for him. I really am.
Yeah.
And, I did a story last July. I went to the opening night of the Beauty League over in Edina, as you say.
Edina.
Yes, with the clenched teeth.
Yes.
I talked to, and, I show up, just let's see what's happening. Let's see what's interesting. Well, Justin Close is playing the first game. I hadn't seen him start a game before. So I said, watched, he had fun. I said he gave up 6 goals that night, which in the Beauty League is essentially a shutout because there's no defense. There's no back checking. It's breakaway practice, basically. And I did a fun story with him afterwards. And what was interesting then, and this is going back to July, I said, Jared Moe transferred because he wanted more playing time. I said, as long as Jack LaFontaine is here, the writing is on the wall as to whose net it is. Is there any thought that you would enter the transfer portal? He said, absolutely not. I know what my role is. I'm here to do what I'm doing, and I'm ready to be there if Jack can't go anytime. But he just was one of those guys that's just kind of accepted this is what I'm going to do. So how cool for him to get this chance, and I'm really excited for him.
All right, Vegas, let's get your predictions on the weekend. I'm hoping you say sweep.
I think based on the way Ben Myers is playing,
yes,
he himself will motivate this team to 6 points. He is winning so many puck battles. He is making so many plays, and I think he's really asserting himself as a leader. You could just tell around the rink, on the bench, Myers is coming into his own and feeling really comfortable. 6 points this weekend.
And Jess, Ben, he is becoming a monster now. He will be key, for this month and then when he gets back from the Olympics.
The key to this weekend is the Niners. See, there. That's it.
Oh, boy.
I'm doing it. No, absolutely. And, that was kind of fun at those games in Ann Arbor. John Morosi, who does a lot for various media outlets, is, a really plugged in guy, does stuff with NHL Network and a bunch of others and Big Ten Network. He watched Matthew Nyes play, and it was like, whoa, are you supposed to be able to do that with a body that size? The hands this kid has from Arizona, all of that. So it's just a ton of fun. I really am enjoying watching this team. I'm reminded a little of the old Yankees lineup where, we got this guy out. Well, there's 5 more guys just like him coming up right after him. I mean, you find a way to slow down the Niners for a shift. Well, then here comes Walker, Brodzinski, and McLaughlin, and that's the next wave. Oh, you find a way to slow down them? Well, here come, what Bob calls the young guns of Bros and Huglin and, this really talented freshmen they've got who are puck-moving guys. I really hate the loss of Jackson Nelson because he, is such an important big body in the middle there, and they're going to be without him for a while now. It was a tough looking injury and tough to see him leave the arena on crutches, but they'll get him back at some point. But hey, I love the fact that Bob said he likes the challenge. He's kind of digging it a little bit.
Yeah. Viggs, could you think the delay in Nelson's surgery have something to do with COVID?
I mean, you never know. The hospitals are having issues with staffing and non-emergency surgeries. I mean, elective surgeries obviously gone, but non-emergency surgeries. And probably Nelson also being a close contact, having teammates test positive, that could always factor in how they want to do things. So, I don't want to speculate too much on that. But I do think that Myers line, though, the thing that makes them so fun to watch is how many pucks they can win back. Knies and Myers can win pucks back every time they go in the corner, and that's got to make Lucius's nights super fun.
Well, I'm saying sweep too. I'm finally back on the bandwagon, Viggs. It took me last week. I was unsure last week just because they needed to prove it to me, Viggs. They had split all of their important series the whole way into the break, and I just needed them to prove it. And 60 shots later on Saturday evening, they proved it to me. Hopefully they can continue it. So I'm going to say sweep as well. Jess, we didn't get anything. Were you saying sweep, you think?
Yeah. I think this is a sweep, and it's not going to be easy. Alaska's a very good defensive team. They took Duluth to overtime, 0-0, not too long ago. I think it was about a month ago. Now this Duluth team can't score. I mean, and not can't score. They don't score often. They don't have a ton of offensive firepower on that Bulldogs team. Granted, they don't necessarily need it all the time because they find ways.
Yes.
There's a system there that just seems to work. But so no, anybody going to these games expecting 6-1 and 7-1, I don't think it's going to be that. But eke out a nice 3-1 win with an empty net goal here and there, and what's wrong with that?
What you got coming up for the Rink Live here, Jess? Any big stories you working on?
I'll give you a little teaser. How's this for an interesting one? The assistant coach for the Alaska Nanooks, this guy named Chris Brown, who for the previous about 15 years was the head coach at Augsburg. He left over the summer to go up to Alaska. He left the Augsburg job open. Boom May, the former hockey operations director for the Gophers, took that job. He's doing a great job with Augsburg this year. But I sat down with Chris Brown a couple days ago over at the rink, and my opening line was, "So Minnesota just wasn't cold enough. Clearly, you after being in the Twin Cities all your life, you decided, what, I should go live where there's no sunlight also." So yeah, I talked to Chris Brown, had a fun conversation with him, and that story will be forthcoming. I may also be writing about Gophers named to the Olympic team and a new goalie added, but we're waiting official.
4 p.m. tomorrow, ESPN2. The U.S. team will be announced. So,
yep.
And on probably their pluses too. Well, thanks for joining us, Jess. We appreciate you getting back on the show with us. Kind of a light week with news, but we appreciate it.
Nothing going on. I'm afraid to get on a plane now. It's like, what's going to happen next?
Viggs, you got anything in the hopper? What's going on with you?
We're going to have some clips breaking down some of the things I'm seeing in the Gophers game for Friday.
Yeah, because I know you're the one who found the Pitlick injury. People kind of appreciate when you can go out there and find when these things happen, because people are like, when did that happen? I didn't see anything.
Yep, so some of the things we've been talking about, you can look on Friday and you'll see some clips of them.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We'll be back next week to, recap this series with Alaska, and then preview the big series with Michigan. We're going to have Chris Long on with us next week. So that'll be fun to get him on the show for the first time. For those of you watching live, we're going to have some overtime coming up next. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast.